All right, we'll get started, and we're going to go back to the municipal stimulus discussion. Item 10.3. Trying to come up with a possibility of a project which would give us extra time to hit the October 1st deadline. Any comments? Brian and Wayne.
I guess I just was wondering for qualifying projects whether the rural water project that we're looking to enhance, we've put some money into engineering to see what it's going to cost, whether that would qualify. It's not on the list, so I'm just curious why it's not there.
Good question as to whether or not engineering would qualify. I know that the expenditures under the program need to be made and accounted for by the end of 2021. So there clearly wouldn't be any construction of a significant amount that would take place prior to that.
You sort of broke up on me, Lane. Did you say prior to 2021, to January 1st, 2021?
The expenditures need to be made by the end of the calendar year of 2021.
And you don't think that that's possible, that we could be on the ground rolling if we get an engineer's report in the next few months?
I guess it's certainly a possibility. If we hadn't anticipated that a decision for a project of that nature would be made that quickly and in a position to move ahead, but it's certainly one that could be added to the list of potential projects if that's the direction the council wants to go.
Well, I guess I was thinking more of, as council, we put money into the engineering, believing that would be a good way to enhance what we already have and offer some long-term investment or sustainability to our community. So I just thought, and it's more broader range. It's not specific to a specific hamlet, or it's broader to the entire county population. So anyways, if you could add it, that's fine. I'm just not sure whether whether there's enough there or not.
Wayne.
I was just wondering what staff was thinking would be a good projects that we might be looking at. What's, in their opinion, what would be the best ones?
Well, the ones that are on the list are the ones that we had come up with, and I think if you were to poll staff individually, you'd probably get the same list. I don't know that we've really come to a consensus internally as to which particular project should be identified as the priority.
Anne-Marie? My question again for Lane or Jeff. If we would replace the water lines in Patricia, there is about a $40,000-$50,000 difference between the grant money and what the project would cost. Is that a cost that has to be carried by the people of Patricia, by local improvement?
Do you want to respond to that, Jeff, or?
Go ahead. I was just going to say, historically that is how we've done it. Any improvements that fell outside of existing grant funding, the most significant grant funding program we had was AMWWP, Alberta Municipal Water Wastewater Partnership. And that covered 50% of some of the work we did in Scandia, and some of the work on the lagoon there as well. It also, I believe, covered off some of the work that we did in the Rolling Hills lift station, but historically the remainder was picked up by local improvement in those areas.
Right, and I that's what I kind of thought, but it means that if we would pick this one, I need to have a hamlet advisory or a hamlet meeting to make sure that the people are okay with it. it's a small amount in my mind if you could spread it out over 20 years, 15 years. It's not a lot of money for them, but I need to run it by them.
I guess one thing to be thinking about, it's my understanding that if there's going to be work done on the infrastructure, it would probably make sense to do both the water and the sewer at the same time. And of the two, I think sewer upgrade is probably deemed to be the higher priority, just because if it fails, there's going to be bigger consequences. The distribution system for the water is working right now. What is proposed would be an enhancement, but I think that the priority, if money was going to be spent on the infrastructure, should be on the sewer, if I'm not mistaken.
Clarence.
It's a really tough time to be really making these decisions. And the one thing that I would think, with the uncertainty that we're facing at the moment, I'd want to make sure that whatever we want to spend, we have enough money for as far as the grants are concerned. I'm pretty hesitant to put any dollars that has already been kind of earmarked now or in the future at this point in time. I think we're, with this whole uncertainty of where our cash is coming from, we've got to be pretty prudent that we get a long-term plan that faces today's realities. So anything that, even though I probably agree that sanitary sewer in Patricia is more important, we got $600,000 over and above. Can't do the two together, which probably means it's not good use of funds unless we start dipping into some of our infrastructure dollars. So I'm just really hesitant to do that until we know where we're at. So I guess what I'm saying is, if we got a project here that's totally covered or almost totally covered, I'm fine. I'm very leery on anything else.
Lionel.
I would really question Patricia sewer without doing the water at the same time, because there's going to be a lot of digging, a lot of disturbance in the same areas. So I would think they would have to go together to make it a viable project, personally.
Anne-Marie. And yes, in a way that made sense, but we have tried that 6-7 years ago, and people could not, or they would not want to go for the local improvement. They could not afford that. And so now over the years, we have kind of reassessed the lagoon. The government is not pushing us for a second lagoon yet. We have acquired some properties that we could add on to other lots, like that's a little bit the direction we were going. And the roads have not been paved because we knew that this work was going to come. And the paving of the roads didn't make any sense until the water lines were replaced, water and sewer. So, you know, looking at this, I think, well, here's a chance for not a lot of money for the residents of the hamlet to get at least their water lines replaced. Might not be the priority, but it needs to be done too. So that's just how I was thinking.
So I'm been trying to look back at the bigger document, and what sort of, I mean, this is a stimulus project. That's all they're calling it. We're to look at it as something that will help our county in some way with local jobs and get the economy moving a little bit. Is that the goal here, Lane?
Correct. It just right out of the guidelines through the municipal stimulus program, the government of Alberta is providing additional capital infrastructure funding to municipalities. Primary objective to sustain and create local jobs, enhance competitiveness, productivity, position communities to participate in future economic growth. That's the priority. So any project that meets that criteria would be considered an appropriate project to pursue.
And it has to be something that we wouldn't have been doing this year otherwise, correct?
It's got to be outside of projects that are already included and funded through the budget. This is something else that is on a wish list, but there isn't budget funds available for.
Yeah, because do we have anything, like when I think of reducing the municipal red tape stuff, happening already through planning and development project, that's planned for this year, right? We're looking at that already. To make our whole planning easier.
That is part of the review process that will be undertaken. We've had some conversation about this whole red tape reduction, and I don't see how any project of a capital nature will reduce red tape.
Okay, that's, yeah, okay. It's got to be a construction building infrastructure type of project.
Correct.
Gotcha. Thank you. Any other thoughts? Kelly.
Well, I like the idea of spreading it around. I think the government would like to see this money or this project exploited and spread around. So I like the water project. If it can get on the list, it'll hit every division, I would think, and bring that project closer to an end for the county. And water, of course, is very important to the viability of our properties. So why not invest in it?
So the question with that is that the start and finish timelines then, Lane, the 20 and 21 business?
It's certainly possible that an initial phase of that could be completed in 2021. I would be surprised if we were able to start the process or project and end it completely.
The 900,000 wouldn't pay for a lot anyhow, would it?
It's going to be a drop in the bucket compared to what's required overall. And I guess if it's the water project that you're going to allocate it to, then the expectation is that the 2021 budget is going to have whatever amount of funding is required to see it through to completion.
Right, which harkens back to Clarence's point of having to spend a lot of money in addition to this money. I guess when I read the definition, it's to, position community to participate in future economic growth. And I mean, if we look at our whole community, it's, that makes it harder. If we pinpoint one community, for example, Patricia, I mean, is that where we want to pin all of our economic improvement or development in? I don't know. maybe we should be looking at a whole bunch of these little projects and getting them out of the road, as suggested by Wayne, I think, at one point. The Hamlet parking lots and I guess greater storage compounds. Who knows, if we get hit as bad as we could, we wouldn't need probably greater places everywhere, because we'd have a lot less graders on the road. So that might not work. Emerson Park, I think the camping is not going to be decreasing in the next few years, so that's reasonable. And the county signs is good for tourism. I don't know how much of the money we could use up on those little projects or other little projects, but do we need to do some more thinking about this, which would put it off until the 24th of September and would only give a few days to get the application completed for October 1st.
Which is doable, but it would be nice to have an indication as to which direction you would like to see us go.
Yeah, gotcha. Brian.
So question for you, Elaine. Can we include those small projects as part of a, not part of, can we include the smaller projects and then use the balance of what we've been allocated, designated for like the rural water project? And just say, well, we're going to do phase one, and phase one includes completion of phase one could happen by 2021, by the end of 2021, but it wouldn't be the entire thing. It would just be one phase of it and divide it up in whatever is reasonable for budgetary type reasons.
I sort of think that could be done. Again, the expectation is, though, that if it's going to be allocated towards the water project, that then you're committing yourself to moving ahead with that project in one degree or another.
Wayne?
If we did these little projects, then the remainder of the cash that's allocated to us, could we use that for the, say, the engineering of the rural water project? And then if we don't proceed because of financial restraints, we still have the engineering done. So that could actually sit there for a couple of years until there's some money available, which might never happen.
The guidelines require that we account for the expenditures, and the program expects that there's going to be construction carried out as part of the program.
Do we have any, when do we have rehab of paved roads coming up? Mark, is there anything in the, like, I'm not wanting to make up projects, but are any of our roads getting close to?
Well, One Tree Road is the one that's slated for next year, but we've already got allocation of funding for that in place, right? And
I'm thinking more maintenance, like rehab, pavement overlays.
yeah, so One Tree Road's the first one. I believe the one following that is Castles Road potentially, going to Agricor Road. I'm not sure how that would be looked at, Lane, because we're amortizing those assets and we've been putting money into those reserves for those purposes moving forward, right? It's not. I guess it's shown in the improvement program already in budget-wise when you look at that outlook, but I don't know if you'd be able to sneak that through or not.
Probably not. Lionel.
So going back to paving, we had looked at possibility of paving some subdivisions. You know, so there, that could fit into this, a smaller project, and could very easily take these funds and use them without additional funds from our own pockets.
Do we still have any of those business areas that are busy? It would be good to, I like the idea actually, Lionel, but are some of those still really, are there a lot of empty buildings, or are they still in action?
There are some empty buildings, there's no doubt about it. But this isn't going to last forever. You know, you have to assume that we're going to move ahead at a growth rate at some point.
Yeah, industrial subdivisions would be a good one. Tracy, Mark?
Yeah, like I think that like Martin subdivision, it's pretty much all full. Like there's maybe 1 or 2 empty buildings, but that would be a great place to start. And I know that we do quite a bit of dust abatement application in there, and you know, that would be one that I think we should consider. Great idea, Lionel.
Mark?
Another suggestion behind that could be Township Road 18-2 south of the office, because you've talked about that before, but it's never proceeded due to funding. One-mile stretch of road fits in that $1 million earmark, respectively, I think. So small project.
Would Martin subdivision fit in there? Would $1 million do it?
Not 100% sure. We'd have to look at that.
Yeah. Any other thoughts about something like that? Kelly?
Well, we talked about it. We have talked about it for about 20 years. It's Fisherman's Bridge over here in Div 6. And I know that that was intended to be a partnership with the province, or at least we were going to talk to them about it. But we could certainly do the dirt work or engineer or something around that, and put in the application that we want to partner with the province on it. Just a thought. It didn't make the list.
Because of its cost, probably?
That or the potential for the partnership. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Other thoughts? Wayne?
I'm just looking at that virtual power plant renewable energy generation system. Where would be the savings to the county if you went that route? Because it's just about the exact amount of money that we need. Would we be able to spread that out? Could we actually save some money over the next 20, 25 years, but with this?
Well, the savings would be over the life of the facility in the form of reduced energy costs. The exact amounts you won't know until you get in and start drilling down to the level of detail required, but that one I think has got some potential to sprinkle the benefit across the entire county, because it will reduce overall operating costs, and everybody, all taxpayers, benefit from it.
So is a virtual power plant solar, or what is a virtual power plant, Lane?
It could be solar, it could be wind. The whole idea is that it's a power plant located in one place that provides power for multiple facilities. It doesn't have to necessarily be installed on each property that's going to benefit from that facility.
So like our other communities could benefit?
Any community association the arenas, the ag societies, anybody that's using power right now and is prepared to commit to acquiring their power from this project would be able to benefit from it.
Wayne?
So we could use that property south of the county building there to put up a solar project. That would work for us, eh?
That's a possibility. Now remember that Canadian Solar still has another year left on their lease option. So they've got until the end of 2021 to exercise their option to enter into a long-term lease. That property is not the only location, though, that a facility of this nature can go. There are other locations, including the area right around the complex itself, where power production facilities could be placed, and it could be part of this overall package that would generate energy for use in multiple facilities.
Are councillors skeptical because it's solar? Or like, how do you feel about something like that? Brian?
I'm not skeptical about solar, other than the fact that small scale solar makes a little bit more sense, but large scale needs large money. And that's the problem with this. I mean, it's $1 million doesn't get you much in solar these days. I'm much more in favor of something that brings value and investment to our community, and that's why I'm on. You know, I've sort of I'm going to jump onto Lionel's bandwagon with paving a industrial subdivision, and I don't care which one. I think that we leave that up to our staff to determine where which one is costing us the most, and if that doesn't work, then we go to these smaller projects with the balance being into one phase of our rural water. So that's where I'm leaning. I'm not a big fan of the solar thing. I think in the big concept it's okay, but I think $1 million is not going to get you much. I've seen the cost of some of these industrial ones, and it's pretty big.
Is this different than a solar facility, Lane? Or is it just are we talking a solar facility?
Well, solar is one form of renewable energy production. The Saywalk project is another form of renewable energy production, and that's definitely not solar. It could be smaller scale wind, it could be cogen that derives its fuel source from natural gas, or other thermal sources. There's multiple forms of renewable energy production equipment that could be used.
Okay. Would it be possible, are people interested in Mark doing a little bit of looking at what this amount of money could do for somewhere like the Martin subdivision for us? And I mean, or some industrial subdivision that's truly, if we're wanting to stimulate our economy, it's hopefully those are the people, it's private industry that's going to do it. Mark?
Yeah, I was just going to throw out there that even that Range Road 14-2 on the west side of Brooks, we've got a portion of road there that is a gravel road that's actually quite a poor road that leads up to Bow Slope Auction Shipping, connects to Joanne Trucking Road. There's definitely a number of vehicles that go up and down that road every day. I didn't really, and not trying to undermine that discussion or take away from it at all, but I really wasn't throwing paving on there because I was looking at what kind of infrastructure we're putting out there that we're also going to have future costs for in the future too. If we're seeing reduced revenues and stuff, what do we invest in that makes sense that also doesn't come with a price tag in the future that might put our taxpayers on the hook? But looking at Martin Industrial, quick measurements, I don't think we're going to be able to touch it with this money without having to have some other money allocated to it. It's about 2.5 kilometers long, so that's gonna, you're looking for somewhere around that mile. So 1.6 kilometers of pavement, if council is suggesting pavement is what we want to direct this money at. So Township Road 18-2 south of the building here to connect Lake Newell Resort over to Highway 873. Potentially that 1 mile of Range Road 14-2 on the west side of Brooks, and maybe Brooks is looking at something we could partner on as well, but I know that's going to require some more coordination, collaboration, because not all of their road is 100% paved either. Maybe it's a small project again here at the south end of Range Road 15-0, where City of Brooks has their asphalt chipped surface road, and then we have the last half mile coming down past the residential area leading towards Martin Industrial. That's also a gravel road that you might be able to target or earmark. So my suggestions on the list for the truck parking lots, the greater storage compounds, and the sign installations, the new map signs, because those are 8 to 10 years old. Once they're up, they're good for the next 10 years or whatever. Greater storage sites, yeah, that might be a bigger conversation with council around budget. Hamlet truck parking lots, as you guys have kind of identified, that was one of those things to preserve our infrastructure within the hamlets by accommodating truck parking elsewhere in them, and being able to keep those people to work in those industries living in those small communities. So I'm all ears for whatever council is open to here.
Mark, how many of those signs do we have, the county community maps? Just one in each division?
There's 10 of them. There's one out on Highway 561, I believe it is. 2 of them located on 36, both north and south ends. Highway 1, both east and west ends. There's one on Bow City. There's one on 525, and there's one on the 875 south of Rolling Hills. And there's one east on the 544 east of Patricia over towards our county boundary. I believe that's 10. 876 north of Patricia. That's the last one.
I think, Mark, you're going to take the 525 off and put it on 875 south.
Oh, there's one on each. Yeah, there's a big map sign on each of those highways.
Yeah, okay, right. Then you missed 575 though. Did you? Anyway, it doesn't matter.
The 875? Yeah, the one down by
Hayes.
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to suggest that we move off this topic without making a decision for now, and go on through the rest of our meeting and have a conversation about an update on where we're thinking the assessment review is going to go. And maybe that'll help us solidify some thoughts, and lunches will be digested further by then too. So, we're at item 10.3. We'll just leave it for a bit. We'll go on to item 10.4, which is the Foothills Little Bowl meeting agenda. So that's next Friday, life-size meeting that, Brian, did you want to just mention anything about that one?
I don't know how much everybody knows, but Robin, our chair, he has asked me to take over the chair position of that organization. He's unable. He's got quite a few issues going on, I guess. I don't know the details, and I don't need to share what I know. Anyways, we had a brief meeting. What day was it, Molly? A couple weeks ago with Life Size, with just the mayors and Reeves and Deputy Reeves and the CAOs regarding the assessment review, and with our RMA. Anyways, it worked really well. We used Life Size. Ariana did a wonderful job setting it up, as she always does. And so that was the platform we've decided to move forward on with Foothills Little Bow Fall Meeting. And there's 2 resolutions. I think they're in the package. And yeah, so everybody's welcome to join it. Ariana said we can have as many as I think over 100 people involved in that meeting. And traditionally at the Foothills Little Bowl meeting that we do have, there's usually around 80. So it should be able to accommodate it. It worked really quite well. We had 30 some on the day that we had the mini meeting, I guess, and it went very well. So that's about all I have to say as far as that goes. But we'll see. It's still a learning process, and we'll see how it works.
Thanks, Brian. The other meeting that Brian references was August 25th, and it did work well. Brian, the agenda, I know you were sort of wondering about a bit. One of the things I thought, if you're still looking for anything to add, was there's been a bit in the news about Tabor and their changeover of their orphan wells, or some of them, to these solar situations. So I'd be curious to hear a bit more about how that's actually going from some of those guys.
So I'm wondering, Lane and Ariana, you guys have done the bulk of the work on this. Is that something you could reach out to them about? I think that's a great suggestion. Anything that's relevant. One of the issues we're having with this meeting, and maybe it's not an issue, is that the Minister McIver is making himself available, but it's not till 1:30, and so we have a gap there between at the end of lunch at 1 o'clock to 1:30, and we haven't got a speaker yet. We've had a few suggestions, but as far as we haven't nailed anything down yet, we wanted to. So that's one spot that I think that if somebody's available to provide some information that affects all Foothills Little Bowl members, it might be helpful. Ariana, did you have any feedback back yet from Minister of Agriculture?
No, I called them and I forwarded. His regular scheduling assistant is on vacation, but the person I talked to, I emailed her the letter and she was going to get back to me, and I haven't heard back yet.
Okay. So what do you think the right process is? To wait for that, or do we follow through and try to line something else up in the meantime?
I'd say try to line something else up. Sure things better.
Okay. Would you be able to do that, or would you like me to do it?
We can reach out to the area Tabor and have their contact on that project.
Okay.
Consider making a presentation.
Thank you.
Kelly?
If you're open to another suggestion for your back pocket, in of all that's happening in Southeast Alberta, I think a presentation on mental health and mental health awareness would be appropriate.
I think at this time, anything that pertains to all municipalities would be appropriate. So we'll try to go through all the boxes. Unfortunately, we only have 11 days to do it. So, 8 days to do it. And coming at it from a bit of a, we got Robin sort of threw this on me at August 25th or August 24th. So unfortunately, in the past, Anne Marie's done a wonderful job securing speakers or making great suggestions and following through, but we've been sort of against the clock here as far as following through with somebody. So I think all those suggestions are good. It's just a matter of making sure people are available virtually.
And of course, a lot of these municipalities are affected by the assessment review as well. So there could be a talk about that, or some, how everybody's feeling type of conversation, or what people are thinking, or where we're going to land in the end with this is a possibility, Brian, if you're killing time.
Mm-hmm. Well, and there's probably even better suggestions out there. One that I just got was from was about how Alberta Parks and their partnerships with municipalities are going to work out. Like, where are they on that? Has that changed? I think it has if you read the news, but at the same time, nothing officially has been announced yet. And that does affect all municipalities as far as their relationship with Alberta parks. And I think we all have one or two parks within our boundaries that are affected. So that's another avenue that maybe we can get some answers on, or some clarification on where the government of Alberta's position is on that, and whether they're cutting that or moving ahead with it. So good suggestion.
Perfect. We'll move on then to appointments to the Regional Assessment Review Board.
So we've had 2 members of that board have stepped down, and 2 new members that are eligible for appointment, and just a motion to confirm that change in appointed members.
Someone make that motion? Wayne makes the motion to recommend Daphne Martin and Calvin Sturgeon taking the place of Fred Ratai and Dwayne Perkins. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. And then appointment to the County of Newell Board. Oh, Anne-Marie, sorry.
As far as the Assessment Review Board, I think we have to be a little bit more aggressive in trying to get more members. I'm the chair of that group, and I had to schedule 4 appeals for October and November, and it's a little tough. There's only, the 5 of us. So is there something we could do if we know when the next training is, and really promote that training and for more people to take it? And it can really be counselors, because that's where I ran into a problem. You can only have 1 counselor on an appeal at one time. So this year there's 2 counselors on that group of people I can pick from, but I can't put them together on an appeal. So it needs to be...
As chair, are you counted as one?
I'm a counselor. So
yes.
I'm not necessarily chairing the appeals. My title is chair because I put the panel together to listen to an appeal. It doesn't mean I have to be on there.
Oh, okay, got you. Wayne?
Maybe, Anne-Marie, if you could find out when the next training is, and then let us know, and then we look around our communities for members that would be willing to take the training. Because I think you're right. We got to get more aggressive with this.
Does that work, Anne-Marie? Okay. So if Anne-Marie lets us know, then we'll try and promote it. Appointment to the County of Newell Library Board for Div 2. This is for Eileen Dunn to be appointed. Kelly?
Yeah, I'd like to make that motion, appointing Eileen Dunn to the County of Newell Library Board, representing Division 2.
Okay, all in favor? Motion is carried. Councillor payment sheets, any questions or concerns about them? If not, we need a motion to accept for payment. Hubie? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. And checks for payment. Register. There are questions? Any questions? I think there were 3 different listings of them. Brian?
I'm just going to move the acceptance of the register.
Okay. Seeing no other questions, all in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. And so, do you have any requests for functions of council? Moving on to municipal services business. Mark.
Good afternoon. Municipal enforcement business, typical out on patrols. Last month, traffic safety calendar was focus was on new drivers, cycling, alcohol and drug impairment, aggressive drivers, and motorcycles. 0 warnings, 0 tickets. September's primary focus is back to school, with secondary focus on cycling, alcohol and drug impairment, and speed. Over the course of the month, 12 warnings, 12 tickets issued as a result of 42 investigations, and keeping up with our partner commitments for their hourly expectations. Yeah. Fleet services, just want to report that they've had some things going on there with lubricants and whatnot. Trials with different oil product in heavy trucks. And what we found there is significant cost savings to the County of Newell, decrease of 50% of the time that we have to change the oil out in the heavy truck. So extending the life from 500 to 1,000 hours. And last report I believe I got from the shop was we still have more life expectancy in that. We're up to about 1,250 hours in the truck. So just about 3 times out of what we're used to with an oil change. That's not alleviating the need to change out the filters and things, obviously, but the lubricant product itself is not being changed. And looks like we can save about $14,000 a year by carrying on with that product. So that was good to see them get recognized by their partners in those trials. Operations side of things, obviously, like until last weekend, we were just about 6-7 weeks dry in this region. That doesn't bode well for our roads. Dust, washboard, everything that we all love to live with, right? Not really, but operators were doing as best they possibly could with that, and thankfully got some moisture there at the beginning of this week. Obviously hasn't lasted long because the dust is rolling off the roads already. So just continuing to work with those dry conditions. Harvest is in progress, so the increased traffic on the roads, hauling product from fields to storage, it's not really helping that, and there isn't really a whole lot that we can do to improve that for anybody. We did put 9 staff through grader operator assessments and evaluations through the IHE Heavy Equipment Operator College, which is in Lake County, BC. They came out, conducted the assessment, a review of our operators on site here, and everybody passed through evaluations. There have been some highlights on things that we can focus some of our operators on, and I'm actually asking for a little bit more detailed report than what they provided us to really look at that education and training moving forward for operators. Truck drivers, continuing with road resurfacing program. You've got the statistics there. They've obviously made a little bit more progress on some of those other areas since writing of this report. So I don't want to even approximate where we're at, but we're definitely beyond the 309 kilometers that we were at when I wrote it. Gravel surfacing of the shoulder pulls with the 40 millimeters complete. Due to not having the moisture, that large aggregate was not getting pushed in, and we've had this conversation in past years. So hopefully that moisture has allowed some to pound in since Monday, but we'll look at surfacing with the 25 millimeter when the time comes. What else we got? We'll be looking at coordinating the plow truck operator assessment as well, since winter season is fast approaching. Past 2 years in a row, first winter storm that showed up was on October 2nd. So it's coming. And I hope it's not October 2nd, but plan for the worst and pray for the best. And we do plan on being winter storm ready by the end of the month with our plow trucks, because of course, if there's any priority, it'll be to remove snow off of our paved roads. Gravel roads will probably just be left to let it melt off, because I can't foresee that we're going to get cold temps that keep snow around that we're going to have to plow off of all of our roads. Shoulder pulls should be complete down in Rolling Hills area. Most of the culvert replacements on the 2019 shoulder pull projects are expected to be wrapped up September 11th. Hamlet of Tillyback Alley improvements are in progress. That'll be good to get that one off the list. And EID continues working on a couple of projects that we partnered with in Rolling Hills along Range Road 13.3 and Range Road 13.4 south of Highway 525. What else we got here? I'd really like to give the comments that Rod Rosland, after his second career, because he worked for Fortis Alberta for many years prior to coming to us, did seek his retirement August 25th after 6 years serving with us. Rod will definitely be missed, but Jason Coons has been hired, and we're looking forward to what he can bring and offer to the table with Newell. Engineering, Highway 876, positive news story here. It's paved, it's line painted, and it looks beautiful. So just some cleanup to do around those things, signs, seating, and all that fun stuff. And that partnership with Alberta Transportation will be concluded. 15th Avenue, 2nd Street West, Highway 873, partnership with Alberta Transportation, City of Brooks County, and Newell. That whole pre-construction meeting was planned for this week or for last week, and hoping that stuff will get kicked off here before too much longer. Lake Newell Resort landscape/drainage improvements are also complete. We stayed under budget with that one, so we took on a little bit extra work to use up that budget as we encountered another problem along Lake Newell Resort Road adjacent to Block 5. Jeff will be speaking to the gravel or aggregate crushing tenders here, also the North Headgate tender RFD as well. MP continues to work on the Rural Water Project Phase 2 assessment, so we can get numbers back to council in time for budget. And we're still, as you heard from Jeff previously, we're still waiting on that report from sewer and the CCTV inspection of the Patricia sewer system. Other than that, we're working on job hazard assessments, job description updating, budget narratives, all that fun stuff, and trying to take a real good look at operations and what we can work with based on some of those announcements made by the province. And yeah, working on a department communications plan as well. And then I did have a note here to give you the statistics from the Rural Water Project with how many people are active on the system, but we gave that with Cole's report. And council can also see from the permit activity that our averages continue to be well below the 3- and 5-year averages, just about 50% of what those were. You know, it's activity is increasing, but it's definitely slow. We're well below where we're used to being. So hopefully more people can get back to work soon. I guess if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Brian?
Well, my question is just in regards to the 876 pavement. Are we going to rename that road the Phillipson Freeway or the Anne Marie Autobahn?
I'll let council make that decision, but you might have to push that through Alberta Transportation.
Other questions? Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion. Oh, sorry, is there a question?
No, I said perfect. Thank you.
Oh, okay. We'll get a motion to accept the municipal reports, please. Lionel moves. All in favor? Motion is carried. And guess that takes us to Jeff.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hello.
The day has finally come. I've been looking forward to writing this RFD for quite some time. We issued a tender for the redevelopment of the North Headgates property in April 2019. Council remembers we adopted bylaw 1941-19, which was the area redevelopment plan, and based on this, we moved forward with various approvals through Alberta Environment with the Water Act, the Eastern Irrigation District, working with the landowner, so on and so forth. So we issued a tender. We had quite a few people out at our pre-bid meeting on site, which was a breath of fresh air. We received only one tender, however, and that tender was received by Brooks Asphalt and Aggregate. Their tendered construction cost was $903,000, $331.55, excluding GST. This does come in lower than our engineer's estimate, which is very positive news. As you can see, the total cost there is estimated just to be around $2 million, and we advertised a local improvement for $2,175,000. So we are currently under estimate. I don't see a need to revise the local improvement advertisements until the project is fully complete, because I do suspect we will find some so sorry, I glitched there. I'm back. I do believe that we will still come in under the advertised local improvement, and once the project is wrapped up and complete, we can make the amendment to that advertisement. So what we're looking for today is to have council award the project to Brooks Asphalt and Aggregate at their tendered prices.
Thanks, Jeff. Any questions, anyone? I'm curious, Jeff, if you have any theories why there only ended up one tender.
Well, I'm sure for anybody who's traveled to site, it could be probably a little daunting to look at the plan that we put in based on what is there. There are a number of local contractors, and even some contractors that, you know, we didn't, I wasn't familiar with, from Medicine Hat, from Lethbridge, and so on and so forth. They all spent a great deal of time during the pre-tender meeting, walking the site, having a look around, and you know, like I say, my guess is that a lot of them thought that it may just be a daunting task that they weren't prepared to undertake, and I think we're all well aware of that already.
That was my theory. I just can't believe it's been confirmed. Lionel.
Well, I'm pretty anxious to see this move forward, and so I would like to make the motion to award the tender to Brooks Asphalt and Aggregate as submitted.
Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried. All right, we'll move on to gravel crushing.
Thank you. Gravel crushing, both the next items on the agenda are for two gravel crushes. They were advertised and closed the same day. And first we'll talk about the Bassano crush. Really unbelievable to me here, and I can't even explain it. We have received 9 bids on the crushing services at the Bassano pit. This crush will, in essence, exhaust the resource available at the Bassano pit, and that was always the plan of this crush. So numbers and volumes have been estimated in the tender. However, you can see that where we estimated $1.4 million for this crush and stripping, we have come in substantially lower than that. Very substantially lower than that, and we're going to notice that on the next tender as well. I talked to a few people, and even I can't explain why these numbers have come in so low. But you can see that the low tender is from Hedin Aggregate Solutions, Inc. They are a company out of Nelson, British Columbia. So they came in cheapest, and they are excited to mobilize dirt moving equipment and crushing equipment into the pit basically as soon as possible. Again, I mentioned the plan was to crush until all of the gravel resource is exhausted there, and we'd really like to do that. So I for sure we won't make it to the $1.4 million, but I think if we do get above that 537,750, we should continue on and crush up into the gravel's been exhausted, and we will still be under budget. Contractors identified work to begin September 15th. Obviously, that might be a little aggressive based on just the timelines of our council meetings and the awards here, but I don't suspect it'll be too long after, since I've had discussions with them. The other thing that I would like to suggest here is that we have the ability to earmark a little bit of the budget dollars to perform some aggregate testing at this site. We know Bassano does produce good aggregate. However, with a crushing contractor that we haven't used in the past, we would administratively like the opportunity to take some samples and have a little bit of budget money to spend on that to ensure we're getting the best final product in the end at our discretion. So looking for a motion to award this to Hedin Aggregate Solutions for their tendered prices, and I can answer any questions.
Anne-Marie and Clarence?
I'm willing to make that motion, Jeff, but I'm just curious, where do the other companies come from? I'm surprised this one comes all the way from Nelson. So just, do you remember where the next one, Westridge, is from, and Lone Pine?
Well, I can tell you Westridge is from Vernon, British Columbia. So the two low tenders were actually out of BC, and again, I can't explain how they have become so competitive with the amount of equipment and whatnot. I can't say that, you know, they may have some subcontracted equipment here in the area to do some of the stripping work, but it sounds like they will be mobilizing their crushers in. I do not know if they had a job in Alberta that they'd have a short mob to or not. Yeah, it's Lone Pine is also from Alberta. I believe they're up north Edmonton area somewhere. But no, I was very surprised to see both low bidders coming out of BC.
Lionel.
Couple questions, Jeff. First of all, this gravel has a great binding agent. What is that? Is that just the makeup of the gravel, or what does that mean?
Oh, did I put that in the Bassano tender crush RFD, or is that in the Ballast tender crush? Basically, my point for that was pointed at the Ballast gravel crush. However, maybe it did sneak in here.
No, I'm looking at Ballast. I'm sorry.
Okay, just to follow up, the types of clay and the mixture of you know, a coal seam that we see up in the Ballast pit does prove to us that it does pack and bind better than gravel from some of our other pits. Some of them that are a little more sandier, that there is a little bit more, you know, clay and I believe coal in there, which produces the great bind from that gravel coming out of the Ballast pit. We do use it on our calcium spots primarily because we do know it tightens right up.
So one other question. Since we get a contractor out of British Columbia, does that mean we can pay them in Canadian dollars, or is there a BC dollar that's a component of this?
Not that I'm familiar with. I think it will have to be in Canadian funds.
Clarence.
Just, I guess, two questions. First, to Lionel's concern, I think we probably haven't, coming out of there, probably have to be environmentally friendly dollars. This particular company, Jeff, and are they, I mean, do we have some backing? Do we have some references? And is that bid for 90,000 cubic meters and then higher or lower?
Yeah, so my computer seems to be cutting out a little bit here, but I'm quite sure you asked about, you know, references and to check on the quality of the contractor. I did follow up. Their website does have a number of references, current and past projects. They have done municipal work, and that's what I was interested in. I spoke to a gentleman at the city of Nelson who has been using them almost exclusively from where they are, as well as another gentleman from a rural municipality that the name escapes me, and they had nothing but good things to say about the contractor. As for the unit price schedule, that unit price schedule is to crush 90,000 cubic meters of gravel, which might be a little on the high side. We may not quite end up with 95, but you know, we may find places where the seam goes lower and we might end up with 120. But they did provide unit pricing on stripping as well as crushing. So what we've done is we've flown both the Bassano and the Ballast pit with drone survey to get a baseline. Once they are completed, we will measure their stockpiles of gravel and their stockpiles of strippings, again with the drone, and pay off those values.
Thank you.
No further questions. Anne-Marie had made a motion to accept the contract or tender from Haiti and Aggregate Solutions. So, all in favor of that? Opposed? Motion is carried. Ballast pit. Just for your information, Ellen has left the meeting because she's having technical problems that's trying to help her with. And she's gone from my screen. I don't know if she's still on someone else's, but. All right. Item 11.
Molly.
Yes.
I had a question, but it can come back to this next one too. Is that when it comes to the closure of the pit, what are we looking at for cost to once the reserves or the gravel reserves have been exhausted? Like, do you guys have an idea? And also, big kudos to using the technology you do with drones and that to figure out what's there and what's you have to pay for.
So absolutely, we have the responsibility to remediate and close all of our pits. I've never been involved in the process except for the old Steville gravel pit, which was once reclaimed to a certain degree. We went in and we did a little bit more work, and we got a closure and reclamation certificate from Sustainable Resources Development. As for the other pits that we have in operation and open, yes, we do have estimates for closure costs, and you'll have to excuse me because I don't know those off the top of my head, but I can definitely follow up with Matt and find out where we're at with those. Another thing that we did at the Bassano pit, the last crush that we did, and we tried to do it more and more. Unfortunately, we won't be able to do it this time at Bassano or Ballast, but you know, we tried to work our way out of the pit, you know, so we open up the pit and we try to exhaust one area at a time so that the next time we come in and crush, we can take the strippings and the topsoil and directly land spread it onto the area that's been exhausted, seed it, fence it off, and allow the vegetation to come back. We did do that last time with our crush at Bassano, but however, in this situation, we are kind of using up the space for stockpiling and mining out the last area of gravel resource available. So we try to take advantage where we can of, you know, it's always cheaper to touch dirt once as opposed to twice. It's pretty straightforward. Again, I do not know the values that we have on the books for the closure of these pits.
All right. So on to the Ballast gravel crush. Any other questions or thoughts come to mind before we make a motion for that one? Or Jeff, any comments?
No comments on this one. Well, maybe some short comments. We did have one tender that we had to reject based on when it was received at the county office. Unfortunately, that tender would have been the lowest tender for the Ballast gravel crush as well. However, it was not a whole bunch below Westridge Rock Ventures Limited. We did reach out and touch base with Brownlee to get their opinion on it. We were quite sure we had to reject it, and they did confirm that for us. So we are going to recommend here that we award the tender to Westridge Rock Ventures, who again is a big company. They're out of Vernon, BC. They have lots of municipal references that have good things to say about them. And again, like I say, they came in almost at 50% of what we had budgeted, and the budgets have been based on previous crushing values.
Okay. We need a motion for this one. Hubie will make that motion. No further questions. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Maybe BC must have lower expectations in their workforce than Alberta.
Well,
you gotta quit making these comparisons.
The great thing is, the gravel specifications are the gravel specifications. It's just a percent of gravel of a certain size passing through sieves, and it's not. Although the specs may be different in BC or Saskatchewan or Ontario or Manitoba, they're all relative because they're all talk about percent passing, percent of fines, plasticity rating, and they can all be achieved by any of the contractors.
It's all good. Okay. That takes us to our host agenda items. Brian, your rec facilities?
Yeah, I had a question, and Lane's familiar with this, from the president or the chair of the Duchess Ag Society, wondering why they weren't included. And more specifically, as the conversation went on, with the Duchess Golf Course sitting on county land, why the reasoning was. And I honestly can't give them a good reason why they're not included in that request for being able to participate in this facilities review. So I'm bringing it back to council. I didn't tell them I was going to bring it back to council, but I am struggling with it a little bit, especially if either Rolling Hills or Bassano is going to be included in this recreational review. I don't know how to respond.
Anybody have any thoughts or feedback? It's a good question, Brian.
Yeah. Well, and I sort of knew it was going to come because, I mean, when we talked about it initially, my question was to council about including ag societies. And I think quite legitimately we wanted to take care of stuff in our own backyard first, and I support that. But, again, if either Rolling Hills, and I don't know if they've been included, I hope they have, or Bassano has been included in their golf course, it's hard for me to tell Duchess they're not when that golf course is exclusively on county land. So I don't know. Like, I haven't responded, and and Lane's done a great job of being in contact and being articulate, and I just want to make sure that we're all treated the same.
Lane and Tracy.
The groups that have been approached are those that have facilities entirely in the county and are outside of any funding arrangements with urban communities. So Rolling Hills Ag Society has been included in the invitation. We have not included any facilities in Bassano, Rosemary, or Dutchess because those three communities, or facilities in those three communities, are all under the umbrella of funding arrangements with those urban communities.
Well, that makes sense then. Does it to you, Brian?
Well, I guess so. The question is so with Rolling Hills, do they receive rec money from the county? The Rolling Hills Golf Society, golf course, through their rec board.
Yes, in Division 1, all of the Division 1 recreation funds are allocated to the Ag Society, which then distributes it to all of the other facilities within Rolling Hills area. And it would include the golf course as well, from what I understand.
So I guess that's the question I'm going to be asked, is how come Rolling Hills is being treated differently than Dutchess specifically for the golf course?
And the only reason is because Rolling Hills Golf Course is not under the umbrella of a funding arrangement with an urban community, whereas the Bassano Golf Course is, and it's my understanding that the Dutchess Golf Course does receive some funding from the joint recreation board with the Village of Dutchess.
Okay. No, and that's fine as long as I'm clear in my delivery, because I don't want to be saying one thing and then be proven something different. So
it's a look at our county type facilities. Tracy, and then Clarence. I think.
I'm good. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Elaine answered what I was going to ask. So.
Okay, Clarence.
Well, it brings to light, I guess, some of the historic things that have happened in the past before recreation became all-encompassing throughout the county. Div 1 had decided how they would spend their dollars, and they gave dollars to the golf course for operations, which is how we fund all our recreation facilities. It's no different than the community hall or arena or so forth, and it's all done through the Ag Society, and it's strictly that money was always there in the past for operationals, and that's your utilities and your insurance. It's always been used for, and that's where it came from. So I mean, it had nothing to do with what happening anywhere else, but that's the way we decided to run our facilities. I doubt if that's exactly the same thing that's happening everywhere else, because I think we're traditionally following what was happening, the dollars going in and out of that recreation fund. Because we never really had a good discussion on how we want to do that. I think we have to be very careful when we do that, because all of a sudden it's the county making the decisions and not the local people. So I think you probably have to look at how you ran things before that happened, get a true comparison of where it really started.
So Brian, are you okay with your?
Oh yeah, I'm okay. I just needed to know maybe a little bit of background, and I mean, when you look at the actual dollars and how it flows, it's very similar, but it is because I mean the village puts in I think about 13,000 and they take out 10, and the county puts in 44, and so it's primarily county money. So it's not that much difference in the actual looks of it, but the way the agreement is structured, it does make it look like the EID or the village is participating, is a participant and a decision maker on those things because of the way the rec agreement is structured. But the way the actual money flows, it's county money that goes to the golf course. So, but I respect it, and I like I said, I stood with the council's position as far as my response, and that it was the county's primarily looking at the facilities that are under its direct control. And I think Lane echoed much of the same in his response to Brad also. So I'm good. It's good.
Okay. Wayne?
A question for Lane, how is this process proceeding? Is it going well, or what's happening there?
What has happened so far, we've sent the information package out to all of the recreation groups. I have heard back from them. They've all confirmed that they have received it. I've asked them to get back to me by the end of next week with confirmation as to who the representative is going to be for their respective organizations. And then the first get-together of that group is planned for the middle of October. So we're still early in the process.
Moving it along anyhow. All right. I had added the assessment review, and I just sort of wanted, I sent out a couple of things that I got Ariana to photocopy off a local free newspaper that we get called the East Central Review, and some of the reactions that other counties have done. There was a third one that had put in a full page ad similar to the ones that I emailed you folks this morning. But I just wondered from an administrative point of view, Kevin, is there anything new since we were in Lethbridge last week? I did not, and I think I reflected in my little note I sent out to everyone after that meeting. I did not feel a great deal better after meeting our new minister, in that there was going to be a whole bunch of changes. Maybe I'm just a little over negative. I hope so, but Kevin and Brian, I guess, can respond as well to the meeting we went to a week ago.
Thanks, Madam Reeve. So I don't think there's a whole lot to be optimistic about yet. My read is one of the options is going to proceed, and I'm not sure that any one of them is very good for the county. Obviously, option one, being around 7 million, would be the best, but option 4, or D, is 11 million, so it's going to fall somewhere in there. They did say that option D was off the table, so I guess that relieves a little bit, but even option C is over 10 million. So it's not good news. I think that everybody's been lobbying pretty hard. I spent a fair amount of time preparing some data and statistics and emailing it out to everybody to keep the information accurate. I think that's been the biggest misconception, is, taking Canadian Taxpayers Association for what they're saying. And I think that is really dangerous, because they're lumping all municipalities in together. And what I've been trying to point out to everybody is that rural municipalities are different. And, when they talk about assessment changes and taxes, I mean, cities' assessment has grown 29% in 2009 to 18, and their taxes went up 200% over that period. Well, municipal districts and counties, their assessments went up 30%, and yet their taxes only went up 27%. So to me, it tells me that it's been shrewd management on the rural side of things. And, the county of Newell has only been 20%, so we're even under that average. So, of course, our numbers always look good because we spend a lot of time trying to manage that year by year, and it doesn't compound us. And, the assets and the depreciation in rural municipalities is the highest in the province, so that's telling you that getting replaced in the same boat as it is in other areas. But we know for the county, we pay attention to that, and any of the savings that we've had, we've always directed back to capital, one way or the other, either provincial capital, ours, or our partners. But so I think we got to keep the lobbying efforts going. I think that I said it before to council, is the sad thing about this is these assessment models are looking at 16 years where pipelines and wells are fully depreciated down to 10%. And that's crazy, because you can't have a tax structure that's political like that. These things need services long after 16 years. Everybody else needs to pick up that balance. That just isn't fair. So I hope the province goes back and really logically looks at assessments to do something that isn't near as political as what this appears to be.
And I think that was sort of the message that we left with the minister, as if I recall. I mean, that was the RMA's perspective, and but I didn't get the feeling that they were interested in starting their process all over again, even if it was terribly flawed. Brian.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Molly and Kevin. Although it was probably, if you looked at the scale of 0 to 10 as far as positivity compared to our previous discussions, it was definitely better. I don't think anybody left that room thinking that this thing is gone and we're going to start this whole process over. I don't think that was ever mentioned. They're maybe going to take a bit of a pause, but at the same time, there was an encouragement that people would know what they were going to face with before budget time, and the minister did indicate that they would try to meet those deadlines. So I think that we are going to see something. It might not even be the A. I'm hoping it's something less than that. Well, I'm hoping it doesn't, but my hopes are, they're probably not very realistic. What I'm looking at suggesting as our council is that we do a little bit more media release, like print media or social media. And let's say we did face a 30% cut, or the worst case scenario, or even the C scenario. What would our budget look like? What would be the things we would cut? I've sort of gone through them in my mind, and I mentioned one this morning about the fire halls. I mean, if we didn't have the money, would we close 3 fire halls? Which ones would they be? If we didn't have the money, would we go from grading every 19 or 20 days to 30 days? Would we have to, instead of being able, after a snow event, would we have a scenario where instead of, now I think we can open all the roads in 4 days, well, that would go to 6 or 7 days. So that people get a real understanding that this is going to be hard impacts to your residents. The fact that we don't ban roads now, that we would have to start that. I mean, those all impact oil and gas and farmers. And that's who needs to be our advocates for this. Because it's great for 10 councillors and a CAO that is passionate about this to get up and jump on our soapbox. But we need more people giving phone calls to ministers and to our MLAs to highlight the seriousness of what they're suggesting. And I don't know if it'll make an impact, but hopefully rolling out those scenarios is something that maybe is a little bit valuable. I don't think we've done enough in that department, and I think that maybe we should be a little bit more literal and on as far as media releases, both print media and social media.
Kelly and Clarence.
I'm so glad to hear your comments, Brian. I feel the same way. I think we need to get information out to our ratepayers, inform them of what's going on. Some know, some are asking questions for updates, all that stuff. So I think we do need to be pushing the information out as we know it, or the options out as we know them.
Clarence?
Well, I guess my own little thing that I did just here the other day, I'm a member of the party, they always ask for funds. And I just wrote a little note, as long as this was on the table, there would be no funds coming from me. And I think that's a really good way to let people know that we're not very happy. If you are a member, please do that. That and somewhere along the line a little while ago, somebody said the price per well that they were paying, or the dollars per well, and was $4 per well an average in the county? Was that the number I'm thinking? Was that something that I imagined? Pardon me?
400.
It is 400.
Yeah, and that's the gas wells. Of course, oil wells are different, right? But
well, that kind of number would just blow people away. They want that to be decreased. And those types of figures should be coming out. And I don't know what oil would be, but, you know, maybe we just should say, well, what are they paying? And is that the difference for profit and loss in these companies? Because 400 a well, it's nuts. Nothing. And, you know, we've got to find ways to get people on our side, because the natural reaction from most of the public is, oh, the county's taking too much money anyway. Well, the municipality is taking too much money, they're fine. Give us some jobs. But you know, everybody has to pay a little bit, and they're being taxed at all, certainly not in our county. And that differential between counties, and I know that puts rifts in between counties, but certainly different numbers right across the province. And, you know, I think they've probably checked out, as far as the provincial government is concerned, is the legality of what they're doing. But it's some jurisdictional issues here. Have they really got the, you know, they're dealing with assessment, they're not dealing with rates, but do they really have control over rates? Not exactly the same thing. And should we be looking at the legal aspects as far as our association is concerned? I don't know. I'm just asking some questions, but I think some of these things should be brought forward and investigated.
well, I think from my perspective, Clarence, I've had a lot of calls about the potential increases to residences and farmlands, because that's what RMA had asked us to put out, which we did. We all know, and I've told the people, I said, this won't happen from our perspective, but this tells you the magnitude of what we're dealing with here. But a lot of the public believe that services can be cut, right? And I think an effort there, it would be time well spent, but we certainly are going to have to prioritize. You know, if we get hit with $10 million here, we know that we've gone from 33 million down to 29.5 with the last changes and some of the incentives that we've put in. If we drop down to another 10, you know, we're down to 19 million in net tax revenue, and that's a total different county. And I think the biggest issue here, that's one number, but the biggest issue here to me is that services based on oil and gas assessment, because in 16 years time, if it's not paying nothing for taxes, you still have infrastructure to service, and it isn't even a reasonable concept. So certainly the long-term impacts of this scares me more than anything, because if this is only a 4-year window, you know, I think we can suck up and certainly look at user fees. You know, the landfill costs us taxpayer money. Maybe these water, sewer, garbage needs to be fully self-funding based on users, right? Same, we've talked about it in the recreation component, that it needs to be more self-funding and not funded from the tax base. I think those discussions are going to need to have to take place, and you're going to have to prioritize, because at the end of the day, there's going to be a base level operations that's going to have to happen regardless. You know, whether you cut your graders down when we've gone from 12 down to 8 down to 4 now, or whatever, there's going to be an impact there. It's certainly not going to balance this budget. It's going to help. But, you know, I think that's where we need to spend our time is outlining the long-term impacts of this. And I just don't think our 3-week window isn't going to get anywhere. We can do all this that we want, but if the province isn't listening, all that we're going to do is stir up a hornet's nest with no end result for the people.
Just if I may, the danger in what we've done though is saying, well, this is what residential rates are. It's being interpreted out there as that's what we're going to do. And you've just said exactly what I've been talking to people. That's not something we'll ever do.
A great deal.
And you've just said exactly what I've been talking to people. That's not something we'll ever do. But that is, how much it really is affecting us. If we would change it all over to residential or all over to the farms. But that's what gets heard out there. So we need a little different strategy, I think, to get, I don't know how far we can get directly acting to government, but we should be concentrating on what the population is hearing and what they're understanding. Because you're absolutely right. I mean, they think we can't cut those things by those amounts. But when I tell people that, hey, our is going to be cut by 30%, how do you figure that? How's that going to affect what you receive as far as roads is concerned and so forth? Well, then they start thinking about it, and that's the message we have to get across, that it will affect what they receive and what they've.
Other thoughts? I'm curious what your ratepayers have been saying to you. If you've had questions or any phone calls. I've had one phone call asking what he could do to help us, and I said we were waiting on a meeting with the Minister of Municipal Affairs, and I would talk to him after that, and also that it's something that we would talk about at council. So I'm curious, Anne-Marie, what's going on in your area?
Yeah, one phone call, and it was basically that the county needed to cut their expenses. And basically from reading the newspaper articles, both about the cap and about how much money we were possibly going to lose.
Lionel, Wayne?
Well, I've had no phone calls, but a couple of people with some curiosities. I think for the most part, people don't understand the implications here, and that's the sense that I've gotten. We don't have all the details either, so it's pretty hard to get a summary of what's going to happen.
Yes, absolutely, Lionel. Wayne?
I'm hearing, we're all concerned here, and we all come up with ideas that we should be telling the public this, and we should be telling the public that. The Alberta Taxpayers Association, they get on the radio and quite regular, and they come after us because we have all these reserves and everything, and they don't look at the other side. They just want to cut taxes. We've got to hire somebody or get something that we're on the radio and the TV as much as possible and explain to rural Albertans, let them know what the consequences will be if this goes forward. It's great. We're sitting in council now talking about this, but nobody's hearing it. We have to, if we want to get serious about this, we've got to have somebody whose job 8 hours a day, 5 days a week is to get this information out to the public. And sitting here saying, well, we should tell them this and we should tell them that. It's not getting told. We got to decide. And I don't think we have to do it ourselves, but we should be, we got to get some way of getting this information out to the public, because the Canadian petroleum producers have been doing a very good job of getting it out there, telling the public that we're ripping them off. And we're not getting our story out there, and we got to do this.
Anyone else with Hubie, thoughts?
Well, Molly, it's much the same as what you said. You're talking about talks are going on, they're negotiating. We haven't got all the information yet, but as Al Camiro always said, the Taxpayers Federation has always picked on counties and municipalities about their taxation. And he said it's old news. They've always done that, so we have to take it with a grain of salt with those people.
So I think it's important that somehow some more information goes out. I think it has to be, as somebody said, it's got to show how it would affect us going forward. And I get the feeling that a lot of people just think we have lots of money and we're just crying wolf. I know I've tried to explain it to some people and I don't know, they're just not that interested in hearing it. Some that know a little bit more about the county are, but yeah, I'm really at a loss, but I think that it wouldn't hurt to try even locally to put some more information together somehow and get it into the newspapers. And I know it's a lot of the communities have tried to encourage their ratepayers to write letters to the Premier and to their MLAs. Our MLA, I think, is very aware of how much this will affect her two municipalities. Yesterday, SPEC had a celebration because they received money from the government to continue and to spearhead some more great programming, which we were worried would be passed off to someone like Medicine Hat, who doesn't know our community like SPEC does. So that was good news. And they had the Minister of Social Services, Rebecca Schultz, there, for Children's Services. And Michaela has certainly talked to her about it, but Michaela also asked me to, it had nothing to do with the SPEC money, but to speak at the little gathering that we had about what the government is doing. And so it was another minister that knows a little bit more about it. But I don't know if it's our ratepayers that we need to be focused on, or if it's the government members. Both, all, I guess, would be good, but I don't know, other thoughts. I think information that is not lengthy, not too hard to understand, but just that a process happened and that we would really prefer that the government start this process all over again, because this is what could happen if a decision is made based on the process. I mean, I think it's a hard line to walk to, because people think that we're against oil and gas, and that's not at all what this is about. So, I don't know. Wayne?
I've been talking this over with several of my buddies that I golf with and stuff like this, and there's another thing we should be looking at is the proper assessment of farmland. Hey, I know that's a taboo subject, but it's something we got to think about, because the farms that are out there right now, and also a lot of the land in the county right now is being sold to corporations like the Ontario Teachers Association. They're paying no tax on that land because it's assessed so low, but they're making lots of good money off this. This is a good investment for them. And the Alberta taxpayer is paying these corporate farms are using our roads, our infrastructure as much as the oil and gas, and sometimes more now, because the oil and gas is not doing anything. Not getting proper assessment or taxation on this land, and it's something we've got to keep looking at. And it's a sore subject for, but we've got to start looking at it.
So should a group of us be getting together to try and put something together? Kevin?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, Madam Reeve. But I would certainly, before you contemplate too much, we're going to have to hear, I believe, what the bad news is really going to be, so that we can make our time. Once we know what we have to deal with, then we're going to have to spend time on determining where the cuts are going to be, right? And I think that's where our efforts will bring the biggest bang, is to find out from the public what do they want to see for services that are cut or capital or whatever. But right now, we don't have any idea. I mean, we can make it way worse than it is, and maybe what Brian had said, that he's hoping that they come in less than the first option. Maybe if it's phased in over 5 years, we can approach it without making a rat's nest. But I'm so disappointed with the information that we're giving and not being open and transparent at the provincial level. We should know exactly which ratepayers are impacted and how much, and we have the assessment records. It's easy data, but they're not doing that. So they make our jobs pretty much going in a fight with your hands taped behind your back.
So, Brian and Kevin, we sort of heard that before the end of October, we would receive information. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because it was asked, I think, specifically to the minister about budget cycles, and I think that was her response. I don't remember whether she said at the end of October, but she did say that we would have a guideline. Maybe I'm using the wrong term, but that's what I heard, a guideline as far as where our budgets would come in. So how you interpret that specifically, I don't know, but I guess one concern that I have is if we wait till we get the information, it's too late. Like, we can't rally anything anymore. And while I would prefer to say, well, this is exactly what you're going to face to our public, then we haven't really. I think we've missed the boat. So I'm in favor of somebody getting together to establish some criteria, and that's what I'm saying. I suggested off the top, maybe we spend just a little bit of time making up a mock budget that would show some scenario that was close to A, and what that would look like with $7 million or $7 or $8 million less in our budget, and that's what our potential is. I mean, it could be worse, it could be better, but we know we're going to get hit. I mean, I don't think any of us that have been to these things are for 1 second believing that this is going to go away. The minister didn't say that. I mean, she said we'd hit the pause button, but she did not say this is going to go away. So that leads me to believe that everything that you said, Molly, and you said, Kevin, is absolutely true. So how do we deal with it knowing that? How do we deal with a scenario where we can at least try to get some maybe when some of this effort is to soften the blow when we do have to make those budget cuts. Maybe it's not going to make any bloody difference if we get 1,000 people that write letters to the minister or to the premier. It might not make any difference because, as I've said many times, where is the rural voter going to go? They've got nowhere to go to. They're not going to go to the NDP. They're not going to go to the Wild Rose. They're going to stay right where they are. And
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
Oh, there'll be another new party spring up or some crazy thing if they want this. This is Alberta.
Yeah, you're probably right, Molly.
The Wild Rose will take off again.
Will rise again. So I guess part of the exercise that I'm suggesting with the media release is to soften the blow. When we get the final number on this budget, what it's going to cost us, how we what that budget looks like will hopefully soften the blow with a media release as far as what the potential impacts of this assessment modifier is going to look like. And I guess I wanted to talk a little bit about what Wayne's comments are when it comes to the farm stuff. I specifically asked the mayor, the minister after the meeting about that. And she said that will not be touched.
She did say that.
She said that to me when I was standing about a foot and a half away from her, so with our masks on. She said, we're not touching the farm assessment. And I said, well, I'm disappointed to hear that. But at the same time, they all remember it was brought up about the Lethbridge model where it was suggested, I think, more that some of us move to a system where we are using a different model to tax agriculture, receive money from agriculture for use of the roads, like the County of Lethbridge has done. Did you not get that impression, Molly?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the County of Lethbridge, I think it works out, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin, but their mill rate is somewhere around 24 for farmland, isn't it? So I mean, we have the ability to do it. It's not very popular. It's easier for them to change the assessment, and then we keep our mill rate closer to where non-res and res is, which is what we've done. But we have the ability to change that. So it's sort of a cop-out way to say that we can't change it, because we can change it. And the County of Lethbridge has done it a different way through their cattle levies and stuff. But I think the minister was pretty clear that we might see more municipalities that have to go that direction when it comes to agriculture.
Yes, she referenced the CFO tax or whatever, and because that's a road tax, is it not, somehow in Lethbridge or county? Yeah.
Yeah, but I think doesn't it translate back to cattle, head of cattle and stuff like that, or not?
Okay, yeah. Wayne, Kelly?
So how do we tax spuds? Per spud? Because we get these big potato growers and they're using the roads an awful lot too. So we maybe by the ton or whatever. So maybe that's a discussion we have to have, because if we lose this linear tide, this oil and gas, we've got to get some more assessment.
Kelly?
So getting back to, we're good at solving the really big problems, but staying focused is sometimes difficult. We've talked about getting some information out to ratepayers a bit, and I've been studying the 2 emails that you sent, Molly, and really lean towards the Newell one. It's simple, straightforward. It gives the information to the ratepayers about the, it's a hard copy that they could in their hand and that they can, and it's also got a what can you do section. I'm not suggesting copying it verbatim because numbers would be different, everything, but I just think the outline is good. And we can make it Newell friendly.
Yeah, and these were, you know what, I'll tell you why these struck me. John Douglas noticed this. And these have been coming out in this newspaper. And as I said, there was a third one, and I for some reason, I've misplaced it. But it was a full page, basically, of the back of their newspaper, or a page in it. And John says, why aren't you guys doing something like this? And he doesn't understand this very well. But when I do believe when he says things like that, I thought, well, maybe this is the sort of thing that might work for this type of thing anyhow. And it's clear, it's simple, and so I don't know. I think we could adapt. We could make something up similar if people are thinking it might be helpful, but maybe it isn't helpful. So anyhow, I'd be willing to work on something like this if people are interested.
I would also.
Kelly? And we've got, I don't think we need to overwhelm our ratepayers. We just need to give them a little bit more information. And I also liked with the painters one, they do put down some of the services, because I mean, there's a lot of our taxpayers don't have a clue what services exist besides roads. Certainly they know about roads. That is always a big one. But and I also like the idea of saying that no decision has been made. And that's true. But that again, I think would soften the blow going forward, so that if in October we find out that it's scenario A, for example. And Kevin, I'm curious, the scenario that, say, the $7 million one, that doesn't include the $3.5 million already that will hit, or the 35% discount of shallow gas, or does it include that?
Yeah, this is separate to that. My understanding is it's a net loss to what we're getting today of either between 7 to basically 11 million. But until we get those details, we won't know, right?
Yeah. Clarence?
Sorry, I was just waving in exasperation, that's all. I mean, I talked to my brother-in-laws and the other rancher types. They live south of Medicine Hat, and they understand it. They think it's nuts. Like, how do you get that? I mean, they are under the belief by doing this they're going to get more oil and gas business. Bullshit. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, my final question to the minister was, so do you really believe that making this change in taxation will save the oil and gas industry in Alberta? And Kevin and Brian can correct me if I'm wrong, but she said, well, not by itself, but with a bunch of other things, with a suite of changes or something like that, I think is what she said. Brian, Kevin, sort of. So.
Well, I actually think, if I may interrupt, I think you were even more pointed than that, because I think it was, the question more was referring to around about all oil and gas. And she acknowledged that this isn't going to save everybody. But that it would, hopefully, the suite was, she was optimistic that the suite of changes would be a benefit to most of them. What was her comment about 0% of 100 and 100% of 0? I can't remember how it's phrased, but she didn't want to see, I don't know, I forget how it went, but.
She had a number of those sort of little cliche things that I wasn't quite sure what they meant, but I was concerned that I was going to get more angry if I stayed in there much longer. But and then in the picture she said, oh, you should come and stand by me. Kevin, did you even stay for the picture?
No, I don't want any pictures with this stuff. I'll tell you, this is the worst news in the world for us. So.
Oh. Well, yeah. Anyhow, okay, well, I'd be interested to know if the rest of you want to put out some more information, or do you want to wait? Anne-Marie.
I'm just listening and thinking, and I think we do need to send out more information because A, people don't really know what the impact is, and B, they don't know what kind of services we provide. And looking at the list from Paint Earth, they have, like a community service and development they mention in there. And to me, I think most people don't even really know what that means and how it's going to impact them if we don't offer that. But if you talk about fire service, that we don't have money for the fire halls anymore. If you talk about roads are obvious, but garbage, Newell Regional Landfill, we can't be a partner in that anymore. We might have to close all our transfer stations, or just something that people know it's going to impact them directly.
Okay, Wayne.
In my community, they really love the way Todd and his people keep it nice and neat and tidy. That would be another service that will be definitely impacted. The social services like FCSS, we will probably have to back off on how much we give them. And there's a whole bunch of services that we contribute to as a county that we're going to have to back off on, and letting the community know this, that'll help. And I think we've got the Post and a whole bunch of free magazines come out, the Brooks Bulletin, every one of them should be given a copy of all of this information we want to get out, so that and put it on social media also. Let everybody know all these scenarios, that's what's going to happen.
Any other comments? Anybody against the idea of putting some more information out there? Nobody's against it. So Kelly, I'm not going to work on this until next week. So I'll get a hold of you. Is that all right? Okay. So I said we'd go back to that other thing we'd left, which was the money, municipal initiative from the government for the October 1st. And I don't know does anybody have any further thoughts on that? I think there's so many unknowns here that I don't feel very comfortable spending a lot more money right now for anything. So my personal belief is that maybe we should be trying to look at this, as other people have mentioned, and find something that isn't going to cost us a lot more money. Or do you just want to leave it for another 2 weeks, which is sort of putting us into denial or deferral of a decision? We talked about Mark coming up with some roads, which I think he sort of already did before we left that discussion. So what are your wishes, Council? Wayne?
Okay, I'm just going to make a decision. You guys can mull it over. I say we would go with the truck parking, the greater storage compounds, and Emerson Park. And there, I put that forward.
And that doesn't take all the money up, does it?
No, there's something, we could add something else in there.
Clarence?
I suggest we make a trade with the provincial government. We let them keep their 894 and they let us keep our assessment.
Seriously?
And seriously, we should write that. Maybe we should just send a letter to that effect, because it's nuts. They want you to make all kinds of this thing is put there to make jobs. And we look at the road that we just finished paving, and we worked with the government to do it, and it made jobs, and it made transportation to the Steveville accessible. It's going some stuff. It's a road that goes right through the middle of oil and gas services. And they come back and say, "Hey, you're not using your money correctly. We're going to do this," and it just blows me away. It does not make sense. And maybe maybe we have to talk individually to every cabinet minister, to every MLA that's out there to drive that through. Here we are cooperating with you, and then you're just taking the feet right from under us. It's not going to help them any. I mean, the money isn't going into their pocket; it's going into industry pockets, and I know they believe that that's going to come back and generate. I got my doubts. I really do. Because the problem is the gas people are getting for the product is too low. We're not solving that, and we're not going to solve that. And so what are we doing? We're going to put more out there. We're going to make the cost lower to get more oil and gas out there. And yeah, probably in the whole of the world and the price in the world, it doesn't make a whole lot of difference, but it just doesn't work that way. It just doesn't work that way. So I don't know whose scheme this was or who thought it up, but they're stuck on it. And it's really hard to combat.
Well, there's world conditions at play. It's not about the county of Newell. Well, we could put in the application and write the letter at the same time, so we keep our options open. So I was just looking at the amounts you suggested and where that takes us, Wayne. So you'd be 300,000 for parking lots, 270 for greater storage compounds for graders that might not have purpose. We could mention that in the application if we don't need to grade roads very much anymore. 100,000 for Emerson. I guess we could throw in 85,000 for signs. That still doesn't get us over the full amount, though. So I'm suggesting that if we can't come up with anything today, we're going to have to wait till next meeting. So you need to think about it and any other ideas. Lionel, or go back to the industrial subdivision idea.
I'm a little opposed to the principle of applying for money just because it's offered. If we do a project that does have a benefit for us a long term, appreciate, I don't have as big a problem with it. But just to spend money just to spend it, I do have a problem with that.
So we write them a letter saying we don't want their money because it's just making up projects to spend, and we it's getting more convoluted, you guys. Amory.
So paving of industrial subdivisions, that makes sense to me. And the Patricia water lines, I mean, that needs to be done. The money is available. To me, that makes more sense than greater storage compounds and even the Hamlet truck parking lots. Like, why would we worry about parking lots right now? I know I'm not helping.
Well, I'm going to make a decision that we defer it until September 24th. And so you guys need to think about it. And yeah, because the decision has to come that day. So
Molly, you're maybe not seeing me, but
I don't see you. Where did you go? There you are now. Yep. Sorry.
Oh, okay. That's okay. To me, I like what Wayne is proposing are more wants and needs. By applying for a grant that, you know, gives us some more power sites at a campground that is not profitable in the first place, because you could never charge enough that makes it sustainable. To me, I think that you look at like Anne-Marie, like the water and Patricia, to me that's something that's coming up. It's coming up very soon that it's going to have to be done. That brings longevity to the hamlet. That brings people to the hamlet. People don't want to move to Patricia because they know that this is an issue that's coming up. So we want to make our county sustainable and viable by upgrading the power at Emerson Bridge. That doesn't do it by making better grader sites, compounds. That doesn't make our county sustainable. Like, we need to look at things that, sure, we have an opportunity to apply for money. Let's make it do something for us. So I'm for the you know, and even going back, the paving of the industrial, I'm in favor of that. But again, you know, it saves us money in the long run because of maintenance. Doing the water in Patricia, it's got to be done. So I'm totally shifted the other way from what Wayne has suggested.
And that's why I suggested we just take it back and think about it for a while. I'm not sure that any economic development, we're talking about, they want some economic development to come out of this. And there's that funny thing again about economic development. I mean, will anything that we do encourage economic development? I don't know.
I don't know, if I may,
Madam
Reeve, I think that any project that we do can prove economic development, because anything that we do is going to be generating jobs, right? Because you're going to hire somebody to complete it.
Short term.
So we've got, that's kind of where I'm rolling with it. No matter what we do, we're going to bring some revenue into our area, right? So, you know, I guess you could look at it that some of the things that we've talked about today might have more drivers in that area, that it might be a longer process to construct. But I think anything we do is going to be behind that driver.
Yeah, and I don't disagree, especially short term, but I'm just not so sure about long term. Wayne.
Okay, I cannot go with Patricia because unless we have the money to do the sewer at the same time, I don't want to go in there and rip those streets up twice. But Martin's, anything like, yeah, do Martin's industrial area paving, that makes sense because that will actually improve the area. I'm not stuck on the parking lots and stuff like that. I just brought that up as let's get something going here. But Martin's makes sense, but not Patricia. Sorry, I couldn't go there because you'd be ripping the streets up twice. So if we had the money to do the sewer at the same time, sure, let's go for it.
Well, seeing no motions coming forward, as I said, I'm going to put it off to September 24th. We need a motion to move in camera. Moved by Tracy. All in favor?
Can Lane quickly give us an update on the census? How's it going, Lane?
It's going really well. We've had just under 40% participate through the online option. The enumerators were trained yesterday. They're going to be hitting the streets on, I think it's Friday, to start knocking doors on those that have yet to participate. Good response so far.
Clarence?
Just a question. When I get an email or get a piece of mail, if I don't answer it right away, I store it. So on Tuesday, and I tried to fill it out. Couldn't do it because it wasn't yet. So then I forgot about it. So the person I live with, have you done the census yet? Oh yeah, so I did it. Now it was 4 days later. I guess my question is, why wouldn't we just activate that thing right away and say, where are you going to be on the 28th road? Because I'm wondering how many people got on there before the fact, then left it. And then just a comment. And I know we're supposed to be on the 28th, and how do you know where you're going to be? But this was only 2 days. And anyway, just a thought.
Fair comment.
All right, we need to, thanks, Lane. We need to vote on moving in camera, and Ellen is back. All in favor?